With all great ideas of some adventure that we want to experience, it's a product of our past experience, our creative imagination, and what we believe is possible. The first time I actually swam a lake was when I did the picnic with David Gonzales and that crew, and really that's where it all started.
Just like it was for myself and others, when Tim did the picnic the first time, I think it inspired him to want to create bigger and crazier adventures for himself, and the lake-to-lake link-up certainly qualifies.
The idea of swimming all of the lakes in sequence was really just really a contemplation of what might be possible for me. I really had no idea if I could swim 20 miles through all the lakes and how fast I could do it, how cold it would be, all the obstacles that would be coming up along the way. And so, I figured, hey, let's give it a shot. So when I began at sunrise on Jackson Lake, the idea was to break it down into smaller segments of about 2 to 2.5 hours per segment, starting at Lizard Creek, making my way across to the other side, the western shore of Jackson Lake, and then just making my way all the way across to Moran Bay. Yeah, go time.
All right, so here we go, guys. Tim is just out in head in front of me, and we're starting.
So there was a gentle breeze coming across, and just the day was breaking, and there's something profoundly, there's no one really moving, the campsite's still, like it's just you and the lake, really.
The first experience that I had that was really an affirmation of what I was doing was the sunrise, and it was such a gorgeous sunrise that it just felt like what I was doing was the right thing.
One thing I can remember is just Tim's turnover, and he's got that, he's got his bodysuit, his neoprene on. Like there's just this real awesomeness to, like, this is a pretty cool thing to do.
Halfway across the lake, I experienced my first significant cramping episode. Was able to make it through that, and just after that is when the hole in my wetsuit started opening up and all the cold water started going in. And that's also when I first realized that my body was going to slowly become hyperthermic based upon the hole in my wetsuit and just the temperatures of the whole thing. The plan was to basically swim for about a couple hours at a time, and then take about a 30-minute break to completely warm up to get my body back to a normal temperature, and then do that again. And I figured it would take a couple hours before the hypothermia would start to set in each time. So as I swam down the shore, it was basically a continuous evaluation of my body temperature and how cold I was getting as I continued down the shoreline. When we got to the tip of North Moran Bay before the final crossing, I was significantly wondering whether I could go on anymore the next morning, because I was so cold and my feet just weren't warming up at all. And I had to just relax and hope that the next morning would be different.
We got our flat water.
Thankfully, in the morning, the lake was calm, and we were able to fire the last portion across the bay, and I realized it was going to be okay. I was going to still make it, and I could at least make that 2-mile swim.
It's reasonable. I think I'm going to live.
Nice work, Tim. Nice work.
We made it over to the swim in Lee Lake and started that around 1 o'clock, just in time for the wind to pick up, which was perfect.
We're on Lee Lake. We made it across the big lake.
made it past Mystic Isle, and this was the significant crossing, which was really windy and wavy here. But I'd done it before, so I knew I could get across this bay. And so we continued on past Boulder Island and did the short little portage there, and then on to String Lake. String Lake was kind of just like, you know, the Disneyland of all of the parks. It was really shallow and easy and warm, and, you know, there's people everywhere, you know, wondering what the heck I was doing. And that was nice, kind of a celebratory sort of swim experience before getting to Jenny Lake, which was really kind of going to be one of the cruxes of the entire thing. Of course, it was late in the day when I got in, and I had about a couple hours to get across. It was really windy and getting colder.
It was like high, just full alert, you know, level 10, like, you know, gotta make sure that my man is safe. Maybe a half hour into the swim, and then that's when the west wind picked up, started blowing to the east. You know, he's tired, it's second day, it's getting dark, burning daylight, and I'm in a kayak and I'm getting blown to the east.
At that point, the end of day 2, I was super tired. I was, you know, just digging deep to try to get across the thing before daylight, and, you know, not choke from all the waves and the wind and everything. But, you know, made it.
Once we got to the parking lot, you know, I checked in with him. He's coherent. You know, yeah, he's tired, but I looked at him, and, you know, we've done a lot of adventures, and I knew he could do it. At that point, I was like, this is a done deal.
The final day, day 3, I left Jenny Lake and made my way to Bradley Lake, which was going to be a relatively short swim, but it turns out that Bradley Lake was the coldest of all the lakes, like an ice box, basically, super cold. The kind of cold where it's like take your breath away kind of cold, you know, more so than any of the other lakes. Getting out of Bradley Lake, it was great to see David and be joined with someone again for the final leg.
Say that again.
Tell me it's warmer. Tell me Taggart Lake is warmer.
Took off from Bradley Lake, did the hike over to Taggart, which was relatively short, and you know, I was feeling pretty confident at this point, although really exhausted, but I knew just I had two legs left, and that I felt pretty good that I could do it. So.
Secondary cap.
Swam across Taggart Lake, and that's when I got ready to do the final trek over to Phelps Lake, which was a fairly significant trek.
Alrighty.
Added in extra, well, 3 miles, going the wrong direction.
It turns out there's a turn that I missed and ended up at the Bradley Taggart parking lot. To my surprise.
Okay, well, back on track, back on the Valley Trail.
The interesting thing about the hiking over to Phelps Lake was on day 3, there were 40-mile-per-hour winds. You know, the winds had been fairly consistent a couple days before, but this was like, you know, it was like a storm, wind storm. And by the time I made it to Phelps Lake, I was slightly hallucinating, and I wasn't actually even sure how to get to the start of the lake.
A few more miles to the lake. Wow. It's like the Twilight Zone. It's kind of what it's like.
I was really happy to help Tim on this adventure, but it was also pretty cool to have front row seats for somebody's grand adventure like this.
by the time I made it to Phelps Lake, I was in a, let's just say, a state of confusion. Wow, that's Phelps Lake. But still determined to finish the thing.
You're really seeing somebody when they're pushing themselves harder than they've ever pushed themselves before, and they're not sure if they're going to make it.
Staggering.
It's a pretty inspiring thing to see, and I recommend it for anybody.
So meeting up with David and having a partner to swim the final lake was, you know, a huge blessing. We started swimming across, and for the first time, I can say about halfway across, the wind shifted and we actually had wind at our back. It was kind of like this sign, this thankful sign of almost a pat on the back, if you will. So we had the wind at our back, swimming in, and as it got dark, you know, was able to make it across. My hands were completely numb at that point, but you know, finished it, and yeah, pretty amazing feeling to be at the end of Phelps Lake.
Fuck yeah.
Dude, great swim.
That was awesome.
We did it.
Woo!